Good evening. This is CBC Windsor News live at 6, and I'm Jason Vio. Thank you for joining us. Here's what's making news tonight. It's been a deadly summer among swimmers in local waterways. Tonight, we'll hear from advocates about some safety tips to help prevent injury or death. And employers have a role in preventing intimate partner violence. A volunteer group is holding education sessions this month for some workplace leaders. Plus, construction in Sandwich Town means some residents and businesses need to pick up their mail somewhere else. And that's in a location where the walk would be more than 2 hours one way. At least 5 people have died in local waterways so far this season. As Dawson Chen tells us, experts say there's always room to improve your swimming education.
Everyone needs to increase their swimming safety and improve their swimming abilities in general. That's the message from swimming advocates in response to what has become a dangerous summer for swimmers in our region. Last weekend's drowning death off the Leamington Pier marks at least 5 swimming fatalities in local waters so far this season.
Every swimming death is a tragedy. We are in a community that's fortunate to have water access and many opportunities for swimming, so everyone should learn to swim and we can teach them.
But even if you know how to swim, Turnbull says there are major differences between swimming in a pool and swimming in an open water setting. According to the Life Saving Society, less than 10% of drowning deaths in Canada since 2010 have occurred in pools, but at least 67% have taken place in lakes, ponds, rivers, and oceans.
Swimming in a pool, many factors are known. So you can see the bottom, you can estimate the depth, and you can see where the closest point of safety is. In an open water setting, you don't know how deep it is. You don't know if there's a current or a riptide in that area. There's many variables that you can't control or are not aware of, and sometimes they're hidden.
For some members of the local swimming community, knowing how to swim only makes sense when you're living in a region that has bodies of water in 3 directions.
You must learn how to swim. You need to learn how to float. You need to learn how to tread water. Everyone should learn how to swim, especially living surrounded by Great Lakes. And I've seen a lot of progress over the years with adults, which is awesome.
But when I asked members of the public to rate their swimming abilities, responses were mixed.
I never got treading water down. I don't understand how people tread water.
I can definitely swim to survive, you know. If I fell, I'd be able to live.
I don't really put myself in situations where there's a high risk.
I know how to float. I know how to get across. My stamina is pretty good, so I think I'm able to make it if I have to.
I love swimming, and I feel like I can do it.
I just think it's important to learn because, there's a lot of lakes around us, and if you ever go on vacation, you just need to learn.
The Life Saving Society encourages training in its Swim to Survive program, which teaches the minimum skills necessary to survive an unexpected fall in deep water. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
There's a volunteer group in Windsor that wants more employers to have a safe workplace advocate. They say it can help recognize and respond to both workplace violence and intimate partner violence. The CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
There's been a continued focus on addressing intimate partner violence in Windsor. The recent murder of the Walsh family in Harrow renewed calls for action. It ignited discussions about allyship and what individuals can do to help. What people may not know is that employers have a role to play as well. It's part of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Workplaces need to take every reasonable precaution to protect workers from domestic violence at work and should be aware of the signs. That includes threatening calls or unwelcome visits at work. A volunteer committee wants to help employers put plans in place. John Beveridge is the Working Toward Wellness Committee chair. They've organized a webinar next week to outline what a workplace can do.
We really hope that it makes a difference. It's about moving the needle here. We've got to work together. This is as sensitive as it is and as traumatic as it typically would be for the individual. You know, you think about coworkers and of course friends and family, but you think about coworkers and they can play a role as well.
A key role they say brings positive results is a safe workplace advocate. They advocate for a plan to address workplace violence and intimate partner violence. There's one at Hotel de Grace Healthcare, and they'll be speaking at this webinar. Heidi Petro is manager of occupational health and safety and wellness.
We realize that may not be something that other organizations of smaller size could have, but at least the concept of what our position does and how we address all issues related to code of conduct, workplace violence, and intimate partner violence in that position might be beneficial to some employers to sort of gather some ideas and then figure out, take back to their own workplaces and identify how they may create some sort of policies and procedures around that.
There is an appetite to do better. The initial 100 slots were booked early, so the group is expanding the limit to let more people join. The hour-long session takes place next Wednesday. It'll be posted online, so anyone interested can watch. Chris Hensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police say 2 men have been charged for sexually assaulting 2 young girls. On Saturday, police received a report that 14 and 15-year-old girls had been sexually assaulted by 2 men. They say it happened several times during the previous week. Police arrested the first suspect that same day, and the second man turned himself in just yesterday. One of the men is 42 years old. He has been charged with sexual interference, overcoming resistance to administer a drug, and distributing cannabis to someone under 19. The 21-year-old man has been charged with sexual assault, sexual interference, and invitation to sexual touching. Well, according to the old postal motto, neither rain, snow, or sleet can stop the delivery of mail, but apparently construction can. Canada Post has paused direct mail delivery to some parts of Sandwichtown because of construction around the Gordie Howe Bridge. Residents are being told to travel to the Walker Road Postal Depot to grab their mail. That's a more than 2-hour walk, about an hour by bus, or 16-minute car drive for people with a vehicle. The disruption isn't sitting well with area MP Brian Massey. He says it makes it especially difficult for members of the community, such as seniors, students, people with disabilities, and low-income earners. Massey has written a letter to Canada Post demanding further explanation. Well, Chatham-Kent Public Health is warning people about an unlicensed and uninspected tattoo provider. It says someone offered tattoo services in or near Bothwell. The Public Health Office is advising anyone who got a tattoo from the artist in that area in the last 6 months get tested, as they are potentially at risk of contracting a bloodborne infection, including HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Well, the holy grail of hockey is coming to Windsor, Essex. The Stanley Cup will make its way to Lakeshore on Saturday. Accompanying the Silver Cup, championship-winning Florida Panther and Bell River native Aaron Ekblad. Residents can see the Stanley Cup up close from 9:10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the Atlas Tube Recreation Center. Chris Potter joins us live now for a look at weather. Chris, another pretty nice day outside today.
Gorgeous day today. Once again, we have high pressure firmly in place. It's going to last through tonight. It's going to last through tomorrow. Tomorrow night and into Friday, that's when it departs. And unfortunately, that spells an unsettled weekend weather ahead. But it's not a washout. Very far from it. There will be some rainfall each and every day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe even Monday in some areas. But once again, the majority of the time it will be drier rather than wetter. Once again, we have now Hurricane Ernesto. Max sustained winds right now at 120 kilometers an hour, which just narrowly makes it a hurricane. That's the criteria, 120 kilometer an hour sustained winds or higher. Now, Ernesto continues to impact Puerto Rico with some flooding rainfall, but it continues to move away from Puerto Rico, and that's going to be the case as we step forward through the next little while. So, in terms of how it will track towards the north, won't affect land until we get into Friday night and into Saturday. This little tiny speck right there, that's Bermuda. And it does look like Bermuda could be impacted with hurricane force winds of around 175 kilometers an hour. Obviously the winds, it will then accelerate up towards the maritime provinces. At this point, it doesn't look like it will impact Nova Scotia directly in terms of a direct hit, landfall, if you will. But hurricane force winds are still quite possible. And because of the size of this storm, it will still have an impact across Atlantic Canada, but it will not impact southern Ontario, so we'll bring it back close to home. In terms of the normal daytime high for this time of year, 26.7, and we did peak a little bit higher than that across much of the region. Currently, temperatures are around 26 in Windsor, 25 through Chatham, and 27 towards London. The humidity, not necessarily a huge factor, but at times it made it feel like the mid-30s. Right now, 33 is the current humidex across Windsor. And in terms of the active weather, What you see is what you get. Not much to point out, once again, because of high pressure firmly in place. Now, in terms of how things will shape up, once again, high pressure firmly in place across Ontario right now. That feature will drift off towards the east. Low pressure begins to move in, and there's a lot of moisture to work with. But the thing is, it's not going to dramatically impact the weather across the region for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in terms of continuous rainfall, but there still is some rain from time to time. So prepare. Have a plan B. If you're going to have outside activities, maybe have an umbrella. But in terms of how things shape up, in terms of the timing, obviously dry through the evening, dry through the overnight, dry through tomorrow. There will be a little bit of mid to high level cloud that moves in, so the sun will become a little dimmer, if you will. Once we get into the day on your Friday, we will start to see the first couple of waves of showers move on through, mostly in the mid to late morning. Through the afternoon, we'll likely encounter some sunny breaks, and then a couple of hit or miss showers move back in for the late afternoon and evening. So once again, it's not going to be a washout. Overnight lows in the mid-teens, typical. Highs in the upper 20s as we get through the afternoon for your day tomorrow. And as we get into Friday, daytime highs around 26, 26 again for Saturday, 25 for Sunday, and 26 for Monday. It does look like that system will finally depart, Jason. So once again, not a washout weekend, but unsettled nonetheless.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris.
You got it.
A Windsor artist is leaning on Ford City buildings to make unique pieces. She creates latex casts of architectural facades, and she spoke with CBC Windsor Morning host Amy Dodge about her process and inspiration.
Skin, right? So I peel it off and I take this impression of the buildings and it captures bits of dust and brick.
I'm wondering how this has changed the way you see our city. Do you walk around looking for textiles and historic walls? And you do?
Yeah, that's been my life for the past few years, is just looking for things to cast. But really any kind of like graffiti or cracks or any traces of time that I find, that's what really draws my attention.
What do you have your eye on to latex next?
Oh, there was one building I really wanted to do. It's 995 Laurier Drive in LaSalle. And I've been trying. I was going there multiple times and calling them on.
Maybe they're listening now. What do you need from them?
I just want to cast their windows, the facade. It's so beautiful.
It feels like, it's almost like you're dating. You're like, so I noticed your walls are really nice and I have this solution and I'm just thinking maybe we could get to know each other on a latex
like a profile
level.
For this, right?
Yeah.
She'll be showing off those casts of Ford City architecture starting today. They will be on display at the Dry Goods Gallery on Drouillard Road here in Windsor. Well, still to come, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will bring you the latest in that battle coming up next.
care.
In the U.S. presidential election, the Republicans have opened a new front in their attacks against the Democrats. Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance are looking to use the Biden administration's green energy policy as a wedge issue against Kamala Harris. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has that story.
J.D. Vance, the Republican hopeful for vice president, grew up in this house in Middletown, Ohio, an industrial city built on steel, which has gone Republican in the last 2 elections at least. And according to Judy Murray, it's going to stay that way.
He's a hometown boy, and I think he's going to help Trump tremendously. He's just what we need. We need this up, and go, guys.
Vance used to be anti-Trump and more sensitive to the issue of climate change, but since his rise in the Republican Party, he's become more of a climate skeptic, parroting Donald Trump's invocation to drill, baby, drill, use more oil and gas resources, and calling Biden's big climate and infrastructure bill a Green New Scam.
We need a leader who rejects Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's Green New Scam and fights to bring back our great American factories.
Here's the twist, though. This steel plant in Middletown, Ohio, is in line to get $500 million from that same climate and infrastructure bill, creating hundreds of new jobs and making this plant more competitive by switching out an old blast furnace for 2 cleaner electrical ones. But many people we've spoken to here don't connect cleaner industry with more jobs, and certainly don't connect the Democrats to that. They're more interested in the cost of living and worried about inflation.
I don't feel like anything's gotten better in the last 3.5 years. Everything's gotten worse.
So the climate fight in this election will be about jobs and how much America is going to invest in clean energy. And that's where J.D. Vance and his Democrat opponent, Tim Walz, are far apart. Susan Ormiston, CBC News in Middletown, Ohio.
The World Health Organization today declared Mpox a global public health emergency for a second time in 2 years. Infections have been skyrocketing in Africa as a new form of the virus is spreading among children and adults. Cases have been confirmed in more than a dozen countries. The CBC's Albert Delatala has that story.
It's the second time now that the World Health Organization has declared a public health emergency of international concern for Mpox. And it follows outbreaks in Congo and elsewhere in Africa, with cases seen among children, adults, in more than a dozen countries there. The symptoms of this condition, Mpox, which was known as monkeypox, known for causing painful, pus-filled lesions, also can cause severe illness or even death as well. It was first in the headlines a few years ago, the summer of 2022, after an explosion of illnesses then, and that's when the last public health emergency like this was declared by the WHO. That lasted about 10 months. The WHO says that in this current outbreak, the cases have actually exceeded the total number seen in all of last year. So they said about 14,000 cases so far as well, 524 deaths, they say.
The situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying.
So the WHO says that it's working on the ground in affected countries with its partners there. It says it's supporting laboratories to sequence viral samples, training health workers, supporting clinicians to provide appropriate care, also supporting countries to access vaccines and helping them with rolling out those vaccines. Albert Delatala, CBC News, Toronto.
The U.S. government is tightening rules on asylum claims at its northern border to deter migrants from entering illegally from Canada. Washington is changing 2 rules for how it processes people under the Safe Third Country Agreement between the U.S. and Canada. Under that agreement, people must apply for refugee status in the first of the 2 countries they enter. At the time of their screening, migrants trying to enter the U.S. will have to provide documents proving they're exempt from the agreement. Until now, they have been allowed to postpone screenings to gather that documentation. Also, migrants will have only 4 hours now to consult with a lawyer before that screening. The previous rule gave them 24 hours. Well, still to come here on CBC Windsor News Live at 6, there's one public health unit using drones to help fight mosquitoes. That story is coming up after the break. Amid the housing crisis, new and novel ways are being used to pay for affordable housing. Community bonds is one method that's gaining popularity in both big cities and small towns. The system allows people to invest in their communities and lets housing groups bypass the banks when they borrow money. The CBC's Paula Duhachik has that story.
Kim Switzer loves living in Lake Country, but with competition from cottagers and Airbnbs, trying to find an affordable place to live is tough.
In this community in particular, the poverty rate is pretty high. We don't have enough housing. We need it.
From her deck, Faye Martin helps lead the local nonprofit Places for People. It's trying to create more housing and financing some of it with community bonds.
We managed to raise $850,000 in 9 weeks, which astonished everybody.
In selling community bonds, the nonprofit asks supporters to invest with them for a set period of time. It will eventually have to pay the money back using funds it collects from rent and fundraising, plus interest, but at a better rate than it would expect from a traditional bank.
And that can be instrumental in getting an affordable housing project off the ground and also ensuring that there's a lot of affordable units.
The model is fairly new but gaining traction, including in cities like Toronto. This week, 11 more housing providers from across the country announced they plan to sell community bonds to build or preserve affordable housing.
People are looking for ethical alternatives to place their money. At the same time, organizations are looking for ways that they can tap into new sources of funding other than grants and donations.
Still, community bonds don't get the same oversight as regular bonds. That's why experts say investors need to do their homework.
They want to make sure that there's some source of cash flow that will be able to pay back in that period of time that you're lending the money.
As for Kim Switzer, she's glad nonprofits are coming up with new ideas to pay for housing.
Try every avenue, because it's so needed. It's needed all over the place.
She hopes this idea takes off. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
As most Canadians know, summer is peak mosquito season. In Ottawa, public health officials are using drones to help target the pesky insects at the beginning of their life cycle. Residents in one area are paying a fee to do their own spraying using the new tools. The CBC's Jocelyn Sheppel reports.
Equipped for takeoff, the mosquito-killing drone is ready. Filled with larvicide, the large machine takes flight. Richard Trudell, a scientific advisor, oversees the drone operation.
They can hold larger quantity of larvicide. So like this one, I think it's 25 kilograms that you can put larvicide in the tank.
He says it's best suited for large bodies of water and harder to reach areas.
The pilot just needs to start the machine, and the machine knows exactly where it needs to go. And depending on the span of the spraying, because it sprays, I think it's about 20 feet wide. So the machine knows after the next line, they know where it goes.
Their work isn't just in the sky and river, but on the ground as well, even by bike. It's all part of a West Nile virus prevention program, led by Allison Samuel, who says the larvicide they use is safe.
They are known to be environmentally friendly, so not expected to affect your pets or humans or even the bodies of water that are treated with these products. So definitely products that we use are approved.
Tufik Sirhan lives nearby. He says the mosquitoes have been so bad his kids had to be taken to the hospital.
Mosquitoes is a really bad obstacle for everybody to go outside. We can't even enjoy our parking, sitting there. We can't enjoy even go inside the backyard or playing the field basketball. But in the summertime, we can't even enjoy it because of the mosquitoes.
Just outside his yard, the West Nile prevention team tests the water basin by his home for the virus. He hopes this drone operation will help. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Ottawa.
Not all dogs love the water, but some were bred for daring aquatic missions. In Ottawa, a local group takes their canines to the water a few times a week to train in rescue simulations.
She has to go actually under the raft to get the ball.
So we just wait?
Yeah.
And what's it like when a 120-pound dog comes? Oh my God!
Dog owners have been bringing their furry friends to the Ottawa River to practice in various scenarios. The Newfoundland dogs and one Labrador retriever swim out to haul boats and their owners back to shore. There are 3 different training levels the dogs can achieve. The owners say it's a great way for the dogs to reconnect with their genetic roots and a great opportunity to socialize. Well, that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News Live at 6. Don't forget, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night.